How are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Wolf, and welcome to another Path of Exile build guide. Now, this one's going to be covering my new and updated Witch Necromancer. Now, a lot of people have wanted to have a recreation of this build, or have me update it, or that sort of stuff. Now, I will say the one that I've created here is not as powerful as the one that I had created previously, but I did want to update the skill tree and update all that sort of thing. Now, the reason I say that is because I'm playing in solo self-found. So a lot of the stuff that I had access to beforehand with the previous incarnation of the build allowed me to do a lot of different things. It allowed me to play skeleton mages, which I can't do in solo self-found because it requires a very specific jewel, or there are two very specific jewels, which I didn't get either of. So as a result, I kind of had to make do as best I could, and we ended up with skeleton warriors. Now, they ended up actually doing quite well, surprisingly. Very, very powerful, very good shield wall, and I can summon quite a few in one click. I also decided to try and mess around with energy shield, and the planned build was to actually go CI. Now, whether I take CI is still kind of up in the air, I'm not entirely sure. But it's what I had kind of originally planned to do. So for this being my first foray into really doing energy shield stuff, I would recommend you can play this life, just make it really tanky, which does have problems getting a lot of life, but it is very doable. But considering I was kind of experimenting into energy shield, I like to experiment with builds and learn different things. This character is definitely on the interesting side, so if you know how to do energy shield better than I do, you may get even more results out of this. And if you know how to do life, or you prefer playing life witch, you can probably get a decent result there as well. But I wanted to learn some energy shield stuff, so it's not on the ultra tanky side. Now, that being said, let me show you a little bit of gameplay of this thing real quick. Pop in a tier 5 here. I would alch it, but I'm kind of poor in this league right now. I literally have 0 alch, which kind of sucks, but that's the SSF life for you. I can't go and buy anything, sadly. So, essentially, we get a nice 12 skeleton cap. We can actually summon 10 per cast, and then we get a nice 9 zombies as well. You just kind of keep summoning them. Now, I just logged into this character, so I don't have all of my minions up just yet. Just keep summoning them, get up to my 9 zombies. And then the zombies will actually summon specters on kill. So we end up at a rather nice army situation going on. And there's a drop in there. Hey, alchemy. Who would have guessed? Perfect. And then once the zombies start going to town, they will create specters as well. I can also call these zombies to me as a kind of defensive layer with convocation, which if I run into a situation that I can't really deal with, I can just kind of call them in. And of course, we are using Vol summon skeletons as well. You can see that number start to tick up, and you can see what the army kind of looks like over here. We have a very hefty amount of minions that do quite well. The zombies are also equipped with Culling Strike, meaning that when we come across a boss or anything like that, they will deal with that very easily. I also have my Golem and the new Summon Holy Relic, which allows us to get some minion healing. The Summon Holy Relic actually gives your minions a life regen, which is wonderful, as well as Convocation. Will pull your following you minions to you, which will pull your specters, phantasms, sorry. It'll pull your phantasms and your zombies all to you with one press. So if you run away from them, you can just press this, and there's your army back together. Which is why I want to make a Soul Rest Summon Phantasm build, so I can just kind of call the entire army to me. Sadly, you can't do that with skeletons, but that is how it goes. So very effective. I've cleared up to tier 8 so far in the gameplay. I'm going to be doing my red map. I have like 1 tier 11 right now because, you know, solo self-found struggles. But yeah, I'll be doing that, and I'll be doing a tier 10 there as well. I just wanted to show you a little bit of gameplay. Now, I don't have any portal scrolls, so I am just going to very quickly log out and log back in. And while I do that, I can show you basically what we do with the skill tree. Now, starting out Witch, you could take this a few different ways. If you were going to play mages, you could go out left side for the spell damage is what I would recommend. There's 2 very different ways to play summon skeletons. You can play it as mages like I did last time, or you can play it as warriors like I did this time. which is intriguing. It's intriguing because you go two very, very different routes. I was considering playing, you know, mages if I got the jewel, but since I didn't, I was like, okay, well, I kind of have to go. I kind of have to go warriors. So as a result, we actually end up taking red gems, a lot of red gems. So we need significant strength to be able to do so. I'm also using a Queen's Decree because I had one of these drop for me as I get messaged in game. Alright, now we can start off as I normally do, covering the gear. So I have my Queen's Decree right here. This is not necessarily a required, but a fantastic piece that I managed to get in solo self-found. This actually increases your number of skeletons, which is exceptional. Now, I personally wanted to get like an evened out number of skeletons, because when you summon them with spell echo and that sort of stuff, it tries to summon like an even amount. So if I could have 6 per cast, then I could instantly hit my 12 cap, but sadly I don't. I would be looking to replace this with a minion damage like staff or something like that. Now in my case, I have a staff right here, which is a nice 5-link one with actually the perfect colors. And I wanted to try and get a minion fossil to roll this thing, but I ran quite a few runs on my berserker, who has a lot of life regen, and sadly didn't get anything of note, so I couldn't really roll that. I've seen minion damage items with like 90%, which are pretty fucking insane, like minion damage one-handers. I saw a scepter with like 90%, so if you can get 2 of those, go for 2 of those. But in my case, Queen's Decree, minion damage, extra skeleton, and that increased skeleton duration. If you read the tooltip here, you'll see that my skeletons last 56 seconds, which is wild. What's even better is the Vol summon skeletons also last 60 seconds. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So Queen's Decree, definitely an effective one. If you have minion damage gear, I'd recommend using that. Solo self-found, of course. Now, in this link setup, I have Raise Zombie, I have Culling Strike, I have Summon Phantasm on Kill, and Multi-Strike. Now, the reason I have Multi-Strike is in the skill tree, and in Modules, I have a... where is it? I have a Violent Dead. One. I only have 1. If you have 2, you can probably use 2. But this makes it so that the zombie slams recover faster and do extra damage. So they get some nice AoE. And with Multi-Strike, they'll do 3 slams instead of 1. Very nice AoE. Now, that combos very, very well with the fact that, you know, Culling Strike, and then the Culling Strike procs the Summon Phantasm. Now, I have run the math. The Phantasm is basically equal to giving it an actual, like, damage gem here. So I decided to go for the Phantasm to have more bodies for, you know, the sake of the video, because people like seeing a lot of minions, and because you do get more bodies in front of you, so you get a bigger shield wall, which is fantastic. But that is kind of the off setup. I would put the same setup here, and I believe I was going to put Ruthless in here, so we could combo Ruthless Multi-Strike to get some insane damage on the zombies. The helmet is a bone helmet with 40% minion increased damage, and it's rolled towards ES with a bit of life on it, because I didn't actually take CI, so I'm rocking about 4.5k EHP, which is great. The reason this is here is because we are using a node in the skill tree called Spiritual Aid. Now, this is one that I couldn't use in the previous iteration because it didn't exist yet, because I created that build in Incursion. This came in Delve afterwards. This makes it so that increases and reductions to minion damage also affect you, making it so that all of this minion damage that I get here out of the start, all this minion damage down here, all the minion damage up over here, all of it affects me, the player, which is exceptional. And then that doubles over to affect my summoned skeletons a second time, which is pretty damn good. This is how you're able to get some pretty insane damage. Now, according to my path of building, I am at 125k. But this doesn't factor in the skeleton limit. So realistically, in skeletons, I'm at 2.6 million. It works quite well. Combine that with the fact I have 9 zombies that do roughly 100k each, and 5 phantasms, or no, like, sorry, 9 phantasms that do, what, 25k each? There's some math for you. That's what Spiritual Aid allows you to do. Get some very, very insane damage. We grab this whole cluster, and it is exceptional. Now that is why I'm using a bone helmet base. Do not enchant this. Don't enchant this. I did it before, and it made me very, very depressed. I had a 40% increased implicit, and then I had minion life and speed on top of that from an essence, and I enchanted it without realizing that it destroyed the implicit. Don't fucking do that. Not a good idea. Now in here I have the Summon Holy Relic, which allows us to get some life regeneration. It says grants life regen to allies and is higher when applied to minions. That's on a cast when damage taken, with Stone Golem and an Immortal Call. Now, the rest of my gear is kind of like meh. This is a resist piece. It's just a necklace. It's a resist piece. It's whatever. I would recommend putting a Seed Breath here if you have the space and you have the item itself. Gives you minion damage, minion max, and minion move speed. This is a wonderful piece for playing minions. Now, my ring, I have cast speed, ES, resistances. I'd like to have double ES rings, preferably, because, you know, trying to play energy shield. But that's how it goes. Other ring is also plus max ES, plus life for the craft, because I figured I wasn't taking CI just yet, so might as well get as much as I can, because I can craft that off to something different, and 2 stone for resists. Chest piece, I made a nice 300 ES chest piece. I could make this a lot better, but once I hit something like this, I didn't really feel like going like deeper than this, because I didn't have much currency. As I'm sure you guys can see, we are a little freaking broke. So, kind of just making do. If I got a Tiny's Trial, I would maybe try and craft this to some godly piece. But it works out in the end. And the setup we have in here is Summon Skeletons, Minion Damage Support, Spell Echo, so that allows me to do 1 click and I summon 10 skeletons, which is wonderful. Melee Fizz, and Melee Splash. Melee Splash is very, very required. If you're going to play this on a 4-link, play Summon Skeletons, Minion Damage, Echo, and Splash. Cut the Melee Fizz. Because trust me, without Melee Splash, this thing plays a little bit kind of pathetic, if I'm honest. It's not as good, could be a lot better. Melee Splash makes it so that obviously your minions will splash to nearby targets. So if you summon something, or if you summon the skeletons on a group of enemies, 1 hit from them will hit the entire pack. You're summoning 10 skeletons, getting 10 hits on a small pack that just explodes the whole thing, because it all overlaps, right? It is wonderful. And then I have Convocation here, which gives my minions 2 seconds of 100 life regeneration, which is wonderful. And that's just kind of in the extra slot. You can put that in the shoes as well. Now my gloves here, I got spell damage, fingerless silk. Gloves, don't really need them to be spell damage. They can be melee. I think that melee gloves affect skeletons. Not entirely sure though. And they're just all around pretty good. Good ES, a little bit of life, good resists, and the one craft that is absolutely insane in this league. We're playing in Betrayal, and this is one of the new Betrayal crafts. Non-vol skills deal 43% increased damage during Soul Gain Prevention. Soul Gain Prevention goes off every time you drop your vol summon skeletons. 43% increased is absolutely insane. On, what, 10 skeletons that are stacked up on the boss? Pretty good. Couple that with the fact you get a skeleton general that then buffs all the surrounding skeletons. Yeah, you can see why that's a very good craft. Now in here I have a Flame Dash, faster casting, Arcane Surge. I would put the Convocation here and then, you know, 6-link this ultimately. But yeah. And then here I have a Resist Piece belt with ES. And for the boots, I have a unique that I came across, which is kind of okay. It's move speed, resists, ES. Nothing really spectacular. I would probably go for a 2-tone craft here, you know, good ES, that sort of stuff. But in here I have Hatred, and now the main goal for this setup is Hatred, Generosity, Haste is what I'm running with in there, or normally running with in there. I was messing around with like a Curse on Hit zombie setup, and then I figured out that didn't work at all, because you can't make minions curse on hit, which kind of sucks. Would have been very nice, but also would have made the game way too easy. But still, so yeah, I was messing around with a Generosity, Haste, Hatred setup previously, and that ends up with some very, very nice damage, because Hatred is, of course, the best aura possible, and to give that to the zombies is even better. Flasks, I have a Panicked Divine Life Flask. Panicked of Staunching would be amazing. I'm not lucky. Second one is just an immune to poison, extra flask. I think I've just had this for a while. Bleed, Quicksilver, Freeze, Granite, and my Adrenaline, Quicksilver. My kind of standard flask setup. This one can be kind of switched in and out for whatever is killing you. Poison goes through my ES and takes off my health bar. So there's a good reason that's there. It's to make it so I don't get one shot by that sort of stuff. Okay, and that is the items, I do believe. I don't think I missed anything. Alright, into the skill tree. So we go out Energy Shield. It's a pretty decent start. Now, I actually go out minion damage to start and then come back for Energy Shield later on. And then we pop over and get Practical Application. Now, the reason I took this so early was so I could actually use my Queen's Decree, because you need a bit of strength early on to be able to use this. So you grab that, pop over here, Grave Intentions, pop up and get this Strength node. For like an early pathing type of thing, so I could use my Queen's Decree. And then from there I went up Lord of the Dead for minions. Basically you just want as many plus skeletons as possible. Get the Jewel Socket for my Violent Dead, come up, get plus skeletons, go over and down here for ES, get this later on in my opinion, over and down all the way over here to get Spiritual Aid as fast as possible. Fantastic node, and basically lets you double down on all of your damage stuff. And then I come over here to get Spiritual Command for increases to attack speed, although this doesn't really affect me very much. It does give you some nice minion damage and minion attack speed, which is wonderful. Wonderful indeed. Retribution also gives you 10% increased minion damage, as well as cast speed and strength and int. Strength is very nice because, you know, your main skill gem setup is scaling off of red, so you need as much strength as you can physically get. And so from there, we then go down. I managed to get a From Dust to drop in Act 8, the start of Act 8. It was pretty insane because I was waiting on doing my Ascendancy to make the build play a lot better. It plays kind of shittily until you get either a From Dust jewel in a socket somewhere, or until you get the Ascendancy node for Bone Sculptor. What was this one? Yeah, it's Bone Sculptor. It plays kind of shitty if you're playing Summon Skeletons, and I was playing Summon Skeletons since like level fucking 10. Not very recommended unless you have a From Dust. So I managed to get that drop, so I got that. Then went Grave Pact for Skeletons. Got this later on for ES. Got this later on for ES. Got that as well. Was planning to go CI. And then that's really it. Basic, very basic skill tree. This is kind of what I would recommend going forward. This is like the ES variant. Obviously, if you're playing Life, cut this, maybe keep that, cut that. You don't have to spend those travel nodes, and then you can kind of mess around. I am considering going MOM on this as well for later on. The only thing that really consumes mana is Raise Zombie. Starting off, summoning costs quite a bit, so it may be worth it to put a Desecrate, I believe, where it pre-spawns the corpses. Maybe in a weapon swap or something. So you can drop a Desecrate, summon everything when you just log into the character, and then go off from there. But yeah, that's really a decent idea, honestly. I have a significant amount of mana already, and it's just extra tank ability. I need to figure out how to get the ES higher, probably just better gear, if I'm honest, a better chest piece. Maybe some more scaling, I'm not entirely sure just yet. But yeah, pretty simple skill tree. Wanted to touch on the Spiritual Aid node because it is very, very huge. And it actually, so long as you use a Bone Helmet, you can get mileage out of this on any build that really comes over here. If you use a Bone Helmet with like, say, 40%, just this node cluster can surprisingly be a decent amount of damage, even if you're playing like a melee build. It's a weird one. It's an interesting one, that's for sure. But yeah, very, very simple skill tree. So, let's cover the Pantheons. Very simple. Just Brine King, stun really isn't something I feel like dealing with. The rest of them, kind of whatever. I mean, I've been using this one on my RF build. But, yeah, I mean, you don't really want to be in melee range. And the small one, I was using, I would go for Shikari with immune to poison, level it up, if I was going to stay as my current setup of like split hybrid here. So then I don't get destroyed by poison. If I'm going to go CI, however, that doesn't really matter as much. It's kind of whatever. But Tukahama was pretty good because I was sitting there channeling for a little bit. Risalada's not bad if you're not really using Flasks very much. And then let's see what else. Reflect damage is whatever. Yeah, I mean they're kind of whatever. You can choose whatever you really want. This one's good for lab if you're trying to do lab. Now on this character, I would be very, very careful doing a lab because you'll get fucked up very quickly. Speaking of lab, let me cover the ascendancies, and we shall kind of be on our way here into the ascendancy. Where is it? I was gonna click the little node thing, but I forgot. They're all the way up here. Now, the first point that I took was Invoker for damage, but mostly because I wanted Bone Sculptor. Now, Bone Sculptor and the From Dust I have allow me to do the shenanigans where I summon 10 skeletons at one click. So because I have Spell Echo, it recasts the spell, right? So if I were to take Spell Echo out really quickly, I'll kind of break this down simply. Right click once, you get 5, right? And now you can just hold right click and it'll like repeat cast and all that sort of stuff. But what you can alternatively do with the Spell Echo, right, is it just auto double casts. It's 2 casts for the price of 1, which is why I'm considering going MOM, because I have a lot of free mana normally. Now, as a result, that comes from the From Dust Jewel, which gives me 2 additional skeleton warriors per cast. It puts a small 1-second cooldown on this thing. You can see it do its little cooldown there. But that's fine because by the time I finish casting, the cooldown's basically done because of Spell Echo. If I wasn't playing with Spell Echo, it would be a little bit awkward. Now, going back to the Ascendancy point here, Bone Sculptor basically gives you another From Dust, as well as +2 maximum skeletons, and the skeleton move speed. It also gives your skeletons res tech, and a lot of increased damage. This is a very good node to rush, take it as fast as possible, because if you want to play skeleton warriors early on, that is your go-to. Otherwise, you're going to have a very bad time. I'd recommend leveling with a From Dust, and then maybe taking it out later on, and replacing it for some decent damage there. And then I went, for my third point, I'd probably go Commander of Darkness. Probably Commander of Darkness, because we are using Hatred, which means that me and my minions will get 30% increased damage, and then attack and cast speed. Now keep in mind, increased damage and attack and cast speed, I believe, will double over onto you as well, because of Spiritual Aid, which is fantastic. And then auras will give them all resist as well. 12k DPS on that one, and only 6k DPS on this one, so this is probably the earlier take. And this one's going to give you increased duration, minion movement speed, and attack and cast speed if they've killed recently, and then 30% increased minion damage if you've used a minion skill recently. This is going to be exceptional because, you know, minion duration combined with Queen's Decree lets us get like over a minute long Vol Summon Skeletons, and I only have like a mid-roll Queen's Decree. It's only like 183 out of 200. If you get a 200, it's probably pretty easy. They're probably dirt cheap. But honestly, I would just take the node that I just showed you. I would take this one right here, take Puppet Master, and then just drop the Queen's Decree entirely, if I'm honest. The 1 extra skeleton doesn't really make a big difference, and to have it just be like 1 click to a pack, as opposed to you click once, then I have the 2 leftover skeletons, and I'm like, is it worth it to summon the other one again? To which, at that point, no. And then you just kind of click them onto the next packs and that sort of stuff to resummon them. So I would drop the Queen's Decree and go for a big minion damage 2-hander, or a minion damage set of 1-handers, like crafted ones, because I have seen some insane stuff. But otherwise, a few uniques that I may recommend. There's really not that many. I haven't really done much in terms of items, and I'm pulling decent damage. To sort by DPS here, we'll show you some interesting stuff. Seed Breath was like the biggest damage increase that I could get. But it says to put it in an Ash Rend if you put it as your chest piece. What it also says to do, however, is to put it in a Skin of the Loyal. Reason for this is its +1 level of Socketed Gems. Socketed Gem level is actually quite important, so it's a very good thing that I have a +2 Tabula. That's what I was using to level until I wanted to start getting ES. So it's kind of a toss-up between if I were to stick with using this or use my +2 Tabula, because I learned recently when playing my Caustic Arrow build that certain skills scale more off of gem level than off of like anything else. And it seems like Summon Skeletons is really kind of the same in that regard. So if I wanted to go for damage, it may be more optimal to use my +2 Tabula, or in your guys' case, maybe grab a cheap Skin of the Loyal with the correct colors you want, because that's saying like 17k DPS. That's only for +1, right? So keeping your gems on level and making sure they stay at a decently high level, 17, 20-ish, you know. If you can get to 20, that's great, but if not, whatever. But yeah, it's one of the skills where gem level is very, very important. But I think that's really it. I mean, a Vism Ortiz would be spectacular because you get a bunch of increased damage as well, but it's not as good as like +1 from what I'm seeing here. A Dying Breath is apparently also rather decent. I have one of these. I was contemplating using it. But, you know, just I like the minion duration. It's pretty funny being able to summon the giant army and they just hang out with you for a little while. So that's how it goes. But that is my updated, not really as powerful if I'm honest, but solo self-found gimmicked, I suppose. Summon Skeletons Necromancer. It's a very fun build if I'm honest. It was kind of annoying to get started because I did have problems playing the build. To start off, I would very highly recommend playing like Freeze Pulse or Arc or something very basic until you get to Blood Aqueducts. You can still take the same leveling route, right? Just what you do is you rush to Spiritual Aid. So you go out this way, right? Come up here, go over here, get Death Attunement, and then rush down and get Spiritual Aid. Because that means that all of this, and all the minion damage here will still affect your leveling skill, whatever you're deciding to play, whether it's Freeze, Pulse, Arc, whatever, you know, Tabula, and then just go to town and use Vol Arc. Because I remember leveling my spell Necro, I was using Vol Arc as well, because I went spell damage modifiers everywhere, right? Because Spiritual Aid didn't exist at the time. So I took spell damage and that sort of stuff instead. But yeah, I'd recommend leveling it something other than Summon Skeletons. But it is a very fun build, and I hope you guys do enjoy it. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the build. Take care, gents.